Good day. Here are the stories for the Manila Times for Sunday, March 6, 2022. Brought to you by Wilkin Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24 by 7 with the Wilkin online store. Just go to shop.wilkin.com.ph. The Russian military is observing a temporary ceasefire in two areas of Ukraine to allow civilians to evacuate, Russian state media reported Saturday, the first breakthrough in allowing civilians to escape the war. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement that it had agreed on evacuation routes with Ukrainian forces to allow civilians to leave the strategic port of Mariupol in the southeast and the eastern town of Volonovka from 10 a.m. Moscow time or 8 a.m. GMT. The vaguely worded statement did not make clear how long the routes would remain open. A top official in Mariupol said the ceasefire there is to last until 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. GMT, and an evacuation along a humanitarian corridor would begin at 11 a.m. or 9 a.m. GMT. Pavlo Kirilenko, head of the Donetsk Military Civil Administration that includes Mariupol, said the humanitarian corridor would extend from the city to Zaporozhye. The head of Ukraine's Security Council, Oleksiy Danilov, had called on Russia to create humanitarian corridors to allow children, women, and older adults to get away from the fighting, calling such corridors question number one. As Russian forces batter strategic locations, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has lashed out at NATO for refusing to impose a no-fly zone over his country, warning that all the people who die from this day forward will also die because of you. NATO said a no-fly zone could provoke widespread war in Europe with nuclear-armed Russia. But as the United States and other NATO members send weapons for Kyiv and more than 1 million refugees spill through the continent, the conflict is already drawing in countries far beyond Ukraine's borders. Russia continues to crack down on independent media reporting on war, also blocking Facebook and Twitter, and more outlets say they are pausing their work inside the country. Two presidential hopefuls presented divergent views on the country's use of nuclear power following President Rodrigo Duterte's signing of an executive order adopting a nuclear energy program for the country. Part of Executive Order or EO-64, which Duterte signed last week, is a recommendation to revive the mothballed Bataan Nuclear Power Plant or BNPP. Former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is keen on reviving the BNPP if he becomes president, his spokesman Victor Rodriguez said on Saturday. Meanwhile, Partido Lakas ng Masa or PLM standard-bearer Leodegario Leodi de Guzman on Saturday said nuclear energy was not the solution to the looming power crisis in the country and will only exacerbate problems on environment and public finances. According to the labor leader, many studies have warned of the dangers from this energy source as he recalled the tragedies at Chernobyl and Fukushima and the issue of radioactive waste. The camp of presidential candidate and former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on Saturday urged the Catholic clergy not to meddle with politics. The Catholic Church in the Philippines played an important role in the ouster of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. through the EDSA Revolution in 1986. Religious organizations of various denominations were known to be endorsing the candidacy of both Marcos and Robredo. U.S. President Joe Biden has invited Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte to attend the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN's Leaders Summit in Washington at the end of March. No less than Duterte himself mentioned this in his speech at the inauguration of the Narvacan Farmers Market in Ilocos Sur on Friday. Duterte said Philippine Ambassador to the U.S. Jose Manuel Romualdez gave him the invitation letter from Biden for the summit on March 28. Vice Presidential pet and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio has urged his allies to unite after her father, President Rodrigo Duterte, expressed willingness to campaign for his party's candidates in the May 9 elections. Duterte, whose 6-year term will end in June, is the chairman of the Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan or PDP Laban faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi. The Duterte-backed PDP Laban wing has adopted Duterte Carpio as its candidate for vice president. Duterte Carpio is running under the Lakas Christian Muslim Democrats Party with former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. as standard-bearer. The ruling party proclaimed Duterte Carpio and its national candidates without a presidential bet during a proclamation rally held in San Mateo, Rizal on Saturday. Apart from Duterte Carpio, the ruling party led by Cusi also proclaimed its 7 senatorial candidates, namely actor Robin Padilla, broadcaster Ray Langit, House Deputy Speaker Rodante Marcoleta, former cabinet secretaries Greco Belgica, Salvador Panelo, John Castriciones, and former Energy Undersecretary Astra Pimentel. The PDP Laban is expected to announce guest candidates from other political parties in the next few days. The non-resolution of the last remaining disqualification case against presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. could result in his non-proclamation in the event he won the May 9 national polls, said the petitioners. Petitioners Margarita Salonga Salandanan, Crisanto Tucusin Palabay, Mario Floreben, Danilo Austria Consumido, Raul Hafala Trividad, Nida Malyari Gatchalian, and Nomer Kalulot Kuan filed a motion to resolve the case on Friday, March 4. In a 6-page motion filed by their legal counsel, Christian Monsod, the petitioners cited Sections 4 and 5 of the Commission on Elections or COMELEC Rules of Procedure to support their argument. In business, to deal with the expected rush of transacting members, state-run Social Security System or SSS assured all of its 281 branches nationwide under Alert Level 1 will be fully operational, particularly in select locations in the National Capital Region or NCR. The SSS said all transacting members were accommodated by the branches, particularly the estimated 100 members who camped out outside the SSS Diliman branch on East Avenue in Quezon City. In sports, Senator Pilar Juliana Pia Cayetano called out the Philippine Athletics and Track and Field Association or PATAFA for its refusal to endorse Olympian pole vaulter Ernest John E.J. Ubiena for international competitions. In the Senate Committee on Sports hearing on February 7, Cayetano, along with fellow Senators Christopher Lawrence Bongo, Francis Tolentino, Ronald Bato de la Rosa, and Franklin Drilon, urged Patafa and Ubiena to reconcile. Patava and Ubiena have not been on good terms for more than 3 months now, with the core of the feud being the athlete's alleged falsification of liquidation reports of his coach Vitaly Petrov's salaries, misappropriation of government funds, and failure to compensate Petrov. Our front-page columnist today is Marlon Ronquillo, who weighs in on what is happening in Ukraine. Today's editorial believes the Philippines' national debt is politicized and often misunderstood. Read a full version on the paper's opinion section or listen to the voice of the time. Today on Lights Camera Voto, we will be interviewing Legazpi City Mayor Noel Rosal, who discusses his life and plans for this year's elections. The mayor is set to run for re-election. Join us at 10 a.m. on the Times Facebook, YouTube, and Daily Motion channels. See you there. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram and keep up with the Times. For the Manila Times, this is Paulo Dimapi.